The difference between companies that understand it and actually make it work is mindset. So if you're looking at AI and you want to go all out, great, fantastic. If you're still not sure, and it sounds like we're trying to sell it, but we really strongly believe it. Welcome to the Implement AI podcast, the podcast where we explore the impact of AI on your business. I'm Piers, Linney, alongside my co-host and co-founder of Implement AI, Dr. Aalok Shukla. We cover the real-world applications and impact of how AI can be practically applied to drive growth and efficiency in your organization. We cut through the jargon to focus on actionable strategies and use cases to highlight the transformational power of AI. Let's dive into today's conversation. Welcome to the Implement AI podcast, the podcast where we help you explore the impact of artificial intelligence on your business. I'm Piers, Linney, and my co-host and co-founder of Implement AI is Dr. Aalok Shukla. So we're going to cut through the jargon and help you understand how to implement AI in your business and how to deploy digital workers. So let's get into it.
Right, Piers.
It's been a while since we did a podcast, Aalok. We've done quite a few events. We're also now kind of helping to scale up this podcast as well to try and reach larger audiences. But since we did the last one, probably about 3 weeks ago now, we've done quite a few events. We've done Anthropy. So we were in Cornwall for 3 days where we actually sponsored some of the events were there as well. We both did a session with Be The Business in Birmingham, which was fantastic as well. For sort of working there with BT and their productivity collective. Did a keynote at DTX in Manchester. I'm also going to be doing AIOS Manchester as well. Tech Show London, where we're on the big data AI world stage, which was fantastic as well. And we've got our own event coming up. So we did our own event at the end of March in London. We had 116 attendees, which was quite amazing. So we're now, due to demand basically, going to do the same event again on the 20th of June in London, Moorgate, noon to about 3 o'clock. So if you can get down there, we're going to go through our AIOS, which we're going to talk about today, how we deploy digital workers, how we really understand the difference between all the noise and the jargon, how you actually take the technology and deploy it in your business. How do you put AI to work? So that's our event, 20th of June. We'll mention it again. There'll be links below, hopefully. And if not, if you follow us on social media or go to our website, there'll be links there where you can sign up. So hello. Well, what have we been up to? I've just come back from New York when they're my daughter's, my daughter's birthday. So I haven't been there for quite a while, actually. It's quite a few AI posters around the place. And you're back in Lisbon.
Yeah, so just a week before you were in New York, I was in New York as well. And I was there for a Leading Agentic conference. One of the things I love, like when we're traveling around, is meeting different either business owners or industry leaders who are implementing different areas of AI, or they're looking to start their business or scale their new department, AI first, essentially. And I never get surprised by the endless use cases and wide varieties that we see. Like, for example, we had our event, and in the workshop portion, there was a good number of people that were filling out very detailed applications of how they would transform their business. And that was really fantastic.
So when you're in the US then, do you feel as though they're ahead of us or the same place or technology? Was it enterprise or SMEs?
So there's those two dimensions, right? There's the what we call technological frontier, where you just literally see every single day, every single week, new developments are coming. But if you actually think about like the operational frontier, like when I was walking around New York, I was looking at the different shops, and I was seeing, for example, like what stores are hiring what they're going for different things. That seems still very much business as usual. So, like we're not seeing as a widespread integration to those places yet, but that's going to come basically. And I think that US, they've got high salaries, they've got high cost of everything. And obviously there's trade uncertainties now. So I think technology is going to be a major driver of any kind of growth that they were looking to do, basically.
There was some SME, but they were quite large enterprise, quite complicated, weren't they?
Yes. So these were like large enterprise implementations ranging from logistics to some financial, to even some government stuff, things like this. And what was really clever and nice was to see like how smart engineers had solved like quite complex problems in quite innovative ways, but then also seeing that like due to the massive amounts of data flow in specific industries, it's not possible to do by human anymore. So, like seeing like what the AI first approach looks like in those ones, that's really good. But what was also very cool is like we actually have a lot of like real world implementations, more than probably some of these other people I was talking to. So that was really interesting as well, right? So it's nice when you always go there, kind of like compare notes and see.
And they were kind of quite interesting. So they were also business critical, weren't they? These weren't sort of like, things they were trying out at R&D. These were actually in production at scale, weren't they? You're saying like hundreds of thousands of calls and sort of notification, whatever they might be doing.
Yeah, or a lot of them tended to be back-on systems, like to do with like KYC, or to do with like some areas of like, e-commerce, or some areas to do with like, for example, knowledge bases or recruitment, or different areas like this. So there was like, or even government stuff, right? Like, there was lots of like very heavy data intensive systems at work, and how different people can access it, how they can work with it. It's very good to see, basically.
I was quite interested because I did a keynote for a large e-commerce platform. And we're also speaking at IRX as well, which is e-commerce. It's quite interesting just hearing them say that we're implementing AI to summarize reviews, or just to help write product descriptions, quite basic stuff. Whereas in some sectors, like you described there, they've actually gone all in.
Yes. So I think the key thing you have to look at is you have to like, this is not like a transforming the edges or the branches or the leads, right? You want to have like a structural, like the opportunity for like a central transformation. So then basically each department can become, AI assisted, then AI first, and then also expand in the different ways. So I think like, as we've moved through the years, there was people doing pilots, and some people still doing pilots and stuff like this. But now it's a question of like, okay, we know this is a real thing. The question is like, how quickly can we as an organization calibrate ourselves to it? Because there's two dimensions. There's the organization adjusting some workflows, and then, absorbing and implementing some of those things. And at the same time, there's also like the learnings of like working with your own data, how you can do things. Because there are many things that weren't done before that people want to do now.
Yeah. So in our event, especially our event we did at the end of March, we did a presentation with about what we call the AIOS, which we're going to go into detail as to exactly what it is. So there were lots of companies, again, now let's talk about this as well. You see lots of companies, I saw quite a few in New York actually, where they had these kind of vertical agents. There are lots of them sort of raising quite a lot of money. They might just do answer emails, or they might make outbound phone calls, and they're kind of vertical, like almost sort of narrow AIs. And they're kind of growing quite quickly with one use case, whereas we're slightly different in terms of what we do and how we approach the market. So in our last event, we kind of introduced the concept. In our next event, the 20th of June, hopefully we'll be able to show more of it, because we've been developing it really. So I thought what we do today is kind of go through to what is the AIOS? Why do you need one? What does it do? Why have we built it the way we have built it? And also, hopefully we can talk a bit about when we're going to start launching it. So let's just go through a difference between kind of maybe vertical and what we're doing, kind of the kind of horizontal, with some obviously with vertical capabilities as well, but trying to build something where you have a platform where you can deploy digital workers into your business and across different functions. And over time, those functional areas, well, they're going to break down to some extent, but those functional areas will expand. But at the moment, we're focused on sales, customer success, support, and some data analytics. So maybe just scope out the AIOS.
Yeah. So basically, one of the things that I've always seen is that like the use cases for AI agents and digital workers is not limited to one department. In fact, when you look at like the data from like all the large organizations, and we're talking about companies like IBM, or like you've got like Deloitte, or you've got like PwC, or you've got like all these other kind of system integrators. They're working in many different departments. There's not just one use case, basically, right? And so it's very clear that you have to have some kind of central engine, or some kind of central system where you could actually bring that into the business and say, like, this is how we're going to actually implement a digital workforce, because you're going to need to do the same thing in many different departments. I've got an article on my LinkedIn, which I call the 24/7 department, which is basically how you essentially agentify any department to scale up its capacity. So we know that that's what needs to be done. HR needs that, sales needs that, support needs that, operations need that, analytics research needs that. So are you going to get 15 or 20 different solutions, and which may be very good in individual areas, but then there's no connectivity, there's no insights, there's nothing, because the same customer will talk to sales, support, and maybe a compliance issue, basically. But where can you actually learn and see the things from within there? So what we've done here is like I took a very strategic approach, basically. Like, think about like, what do you need basically in a business? You need to have three things. You need to have AI agent teams, and they need to be configurable according to your organization. And I talk with organizations that consult for big construction projects, or I'll talk with an organization that is doing B2B corporate event sales, or I'll talk to an organization that is doing medical devices for surgical platforms. They have different needs, but essentially it's the same type of team. It's a support team. It's a business development team, or it's a research team, or whatever like that, basically. So you need to have configurable teams, because there's also more and more use cases they want to identify. Like, for example, yesterday I was talking with a property company, and we were going through everything and seeing the different areas of the business. And we were talking about how much of the operational expense, how much of the cost can be identified, basically. And we were talking about different departments. So the point is, you need something where there are some things you can kind of drive value with now, and you need a long tail of other use cases you can implement. So that's configurable agent.
But isn't that, though, was it explain how we define a team? Because that's something that's kind of moved on as well, isn't it? In terms of agents, singular.
Yes. So basically, agent team can be like multiple steps. And I'll give an example. Let's say we got one customer, where the agent will answer the phone, and it will get information from the customer about what's going on with their situation, with their building. Okay. But based on the customer, based on the contract that they hold, and based on the date that it is within the month, different people need to be notified, different engineers or different locations. An email needs to go to the North Division or the South Division, different ways. So we've got an agent which is on the phone, and we've got another agent which is looking after a spreadsheet, basically, right? And the two of them will talk together, basically, where one of them is validating the information, capturing it. The other one is researching and looking everything up, and then the third one will take an action on based on this person in the North Division with a third person, and they don't have a contract for air conditioning. We're going to have to activate this other person, basically, and then that person will call that one. So that's like a team. That's not one thing happening. Other situations will be where, for example, where one AI agent is dealing with a customer, and a different one is, for example, using a computer to update a system, for example. So that's working as a team, if that makes sense, basically.
And then you've got the agentic CRM, and then type.
Yeah, so I'll talk to that.
Yeah.
So that's the first bit, configurable teams. Every business needs to have the ability to have their kind of hero teams, business development, sales, support, operations, analytics, whatever, compliance. But then you also want to build other teams over time. So that's where we talked about configurability. Then in the middle, you've got the agentic CRM. So what this means is that any agent which is interacting with a customer, a business, or even researching or monitoring a web page, that data then sits centrally within your agentic CRM. And that data is in a way that the agents can read it and understand it, basically. So let me give a couple of examples. One business, they have got loads of documents all over the place, and they didn't know all the documents which relate to one particular company. So we were talking how one of our agents could literally read the document, generate metadata for the document in terms of what it's about, all the different details, the year as well, how up to date it is, and what it references and tags. And then it can help. Another one can then be categorizing those and filtering them into company A, company B, company C. And then if you ask a question about company A, it would also know to prioritize the more recent documents, than the older ones, basically, unless you tell it something else. So that's the agentic CRM. So that's one part of data. The other thing could be, for example, any phone call that happens that the analyst agent is monitoring, and someone said, "Don't talk to me now, call me in 6 months," basically, right? That can then be logged in the system, and a task can be created from that automatically, essentially. So then they could be contacted in 6 months, essentially, right? Then you've also got other dimensions where, let's just say, for example, they mentioned, "Oh, I'm working with your competitor. I'm working with TRB recruitment," basically. You could have a system set up where okay, let's do some enrichment on TRB recruitment. And because list all the competitors that were mentioned, and then I want to research them. Who's the main manager? What projects they work on? Whatever like that. So you can then attach a research agent to those ones to be able to do more stuff. So I think you can begin to understand you've got the ability to capture the information, but more importantly, unlock actions and insights from it, basically, right?
But also, the big difference as well is that it's capturing information from multiple sources. It could be WhatsApp, voice, it could be email, it could be even SMS. But it's also unstructured as well. So you're capturing that valuable, super valuable actually, unstructured information, conversational information, which a typical CRM, flat one, let's call it, can't deal with.
You can't show me all the people that mentioned they're going to cancel their contract next month, basically, right? You can't do that because it's logged, designed for a human to open up the Salesforce notes and read on it. So that's the agentic CRM. So that becomes more and more powerful over time, the more data that kind of goes within it. And you can start to like uncover opportunities. Like with many businesses, if you just go through the last 2 months of phone calls, you can spot missed opportunities. People who discussed something but were not proposed a solution to sell. People who even explicitly discussed something but didn't book an appointment, basically, right? So that's one of the hero use cases that our agents do. And then the third thing is what we call agentic task engine. So what that is like, that's like how to like trigger actions based off something. So for example, an agent interacts with something, captures the data, and then you want to then trigger something else, that you wanted to update an on-prem solution. So then a different agent can update the information and move the mouse and do all that kind of stuff. Or let's say for a different example, I want to price monitor my competitors for these pages. So you can set up a monitoring agent, which will then be monitoring different places, looking at different things and different stuff like that. But then you can also then do customizable stuff. Like say, for example, I want a recruitment agent and I want it to like basically screen CVs, score them against this, and then look at different stuff. So then you could configure a team that would then be attached to like a feed, an input or something that's coming from it, which could be from one of the agents, like a support agent, for example. And then it could then be processing afterwards. So again, you start linking them in teams essentially, right? And the power of this is that everything can be within one place. And also you can have a report set up. So you could say, for example, please send me a report every single day, missed sales opportunities by sales team, support team, or, compliance. Please show me examples of people who could be contacted to leave a good review, that they showed genuine interest and they were happy about it, not being asked if they're happy about it. They showed they were happy on it, or show me people who are currently inquired, but they've ordered from us in the past, but it's been more than 6 months. So they could be worth actually providing some kind of incentive or something like this. So I think I'm trying to make the point that like there's the difference between AI first business and the ones that will win in this kind of like new digital workforce dimension is the ones that can action and act on more data. You capture more data and you can act on more data. They're the two vectors, basically, right? So by being able to have it capture more data and act on more data, you can be more responsive, you can have a lower cost structure, and you can be faster than other people. So that's what we kind of built. And essentially, as the models get more powerful,
Yeah, but you make it sound like, which some people worry about, don't they? That it's all sort of autonomous, it's off doing its own thing. You turn it on a Monday morning, you turn it off Friday night. And that's not the case, is it? So you can structure it so you can have as many humans in the loop when necessary, can't you?
yeah, you need them, right? So basically, what if you can think about it as like a level 1 implementation is like having lots of analysts, which will surface for you information, basically, right? And then the step 1 is then the human has to filter those and say, okay, what would we do with these people? Well, and then you're like, okay, I want these ones to be followed up, or I want these to go to my sales manager. So what we find often in a business is like they want the humans to go up the value chain. And so rather than doing like kind of like higher volume, lower value stuff, they can deal with more qualified or more engaged people, basically a bit higher up. But I want to emphasize the point. This is not about just like letting things go and let it just communicate, just automatically. No, you set up clear flows. Like when this happens, then this, basically. And then that can then be reviewed by a person, or that can go into your system or whatever it is like that.
And also, we were talking about earlier in the week, weren't we, about various US companies raised a lot of money. They've got this kind of vertical agents, they call it. Because actually, I was on one of their webinars yesterday listening to it. It's quite interesting that actually what they really is a sales agent. What they're really doing, they're getting lots of data, and they're just basically it's basically mass emails, just using a bit of AI essentially to write sensible emails. That's all it's really doing, and there's a bit of training going on in there. Whereas what we're doing is quite different. Actually, it's much more about where can you actually deploy digital workers to augment what you currently do, but across the organization. So maybe just talk about how that eventually that's all going to fit together, because what we want to do really is to help our customers have an AI first business, not just something where there's an AI in a little vertical part of it, just sort of tweaking the size.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the key thing here is like that use case you talked about, our sales team can do that. Yeah, and we can plug into as many data sources as we want, because no single company, all they're doing is aggregating different data sources. So we can connect into different ones and different stuff like that. But I think the key thing here is like each department, let's call it business development, let's call it customer retention, let's call it customer support, let's call it compliance. They all got kind of common needs, and they're going to be dealing with similar people. So the compliance people will need to know what the salesperson says to the people. And then they also need to know, like, for example, let's say the retention person or success person will need to know, what were they promised at the first when they were discussing the kind of conversation and stuff like this. So having that kind of centralized area where, they can actually see those things in an easy way, and at the same time, potentially change, the way you want things to people to describe or discuss with people, that can work. So I think the key thing is that we're focused on building essentially central teams that can work with pretty much most businesses, basically, right? If you've got like a very specialist business, like let's give an example, pharmacy, for example, right? So pharmacies have like specialist processes and stuff like that, right? We do work with pharmacies. So we built specialist agents which can deal with, say, specific patients with specific conditions and specific private services. But for the kind of core stuff, which is, let's say, for example, I don't know, dealing with the GP prescription or different stuff like this, central workflow stuff, there will always be a need for like specialist software in those areas. And that's similar to like case law things for lawyers and stuff like that. So I think you need both, basically, right? Like you'll need something which has got domain expertise for a particular regulated component, but then you also need essentially your central operations team, basically, which can do everything else. And that's where we see ourselves, basically.
Well, I was doing some work with a big legal practice software company, and I was talking about the law firm of the future. So in the middle, you might have some specialist software, like you mentioned, practice management, for example, or in healthcare, there's software as well. There is for management too, and VC. But then number one, actually, you've got to be able to access the data. So if you can't, you need to swap it out, and I really mean that as well. But once you've accessed the data, you can then build around that agents to kind of do the repetitive work, the research, the grunt work. But then around that, you have humans as well. Then how those humans integrate with the AIs, it depends how you want to structure your business, essentially. But over time, you're going to have humans doing much more of the valuable work, and the AIs doing what sort of
Chasing.
yeah, or chasing. I did an article the other day. I'm writing another one actually about what the low-level juniors are doing. So you're going to see that there's kind of an issue long term about where talent goes. But what we're also doing is building what we call managed AI agents, so managed digital workers, because we're not expecting our customers to understand artificial intelligence, where it's going, what capabilities it's got, yeah, how it works, what upgrades, yeah, exactly, and integrations. So we're kind of you will say, don't you, Aalok, that if you want to hire somebody, you go to recruitment consultants. You want to hire digital workers, you come to a company like Implement AI.
If you want to buy IT, you go for IT.
Yeah, you want to buy IT. So we're almost like a costing IT and HR, but for digital workers. But maybe talk a bit about they've got the AIOS, which is kind of the technology, but the managed part of it, where we sort of help people
Yes.
set it up.
Basically, yes. So basically, the way a business needs to work is like you need to do two things. One, you need to identify, like, for example, like, if I had, for example, an AI first business, or if I had like AI helping me in my sales department or my support department, what difference could that make? You got to start with a business case, right? So it's like, like what could we do? So I've got, 100,000 inactive customers, or I've got, like a geographic location, but I want to be able to expand my services, weekends and evenings in different places, or I want to, go after different verticals with more personalized approaches. Think about, like, have an idea of like what your business use case is there. You don't have to be too clear about it, because we can work with you and discuss and find some of those different ones. But essentially, it's like, the value thing that you're trying to like look at and trying to do. Then the second thing that you've got, basically, is that, like, it's like, what would that look like? So it's in terms of like, okay, so I need someone that will answer the phone, go through everything, answer the questions based on these pages of my website. But then if it doesn't match that, I need them to then transfer live to a human, or I need them to actually create a ticket or whatever like that, basically, right? So that one is like more mapping out that whole workflow, which we work with you on to. And then the whole point is that you can then work with you guys to do a pilot where it's like, okay, you can get that in place and prove that business use case. And the third dimension is like, okay, now there's insights, because when an agent does work, you don't just get a task, you get a data stream as well. So then the question is like, what else can you do from that, basically? And that dimension is there's lots of very interesting things, because you can suddenly, upsell and cross-sell more customers, or you could suddenly close people better because you can enrich them further, different stuff like this. So really the whole point is that you just need to think like, okay, I want to strengthen this department. So often we'll work with like a chief operations officer or CEO or CTO or whatever like that. And they're like, I want to strengthen this department. And I think AI agents can help us. And then what we then do is we then do a consultation, talk through them and say, okay, yes, based on these use cases, AI agents could help you like this with a 24/7 department, or it could help you this with like a whole new division, basically, like, which is like, yeah, AI first in that area. Or it could be analysts, where you keep the people the same, but it's like helping capture and discover opportunities you didn't even know you had, basically, right? From those ones, we then map out a little bit about what your ROI could look like, because like you've got this going on, like you go to this. So then we'll do a pilot, which is our Activate program. And the point there is that you work together and you can make sure that's working as you want it to do. And that's almost like onboarding your first 1 to 3 digital workers, basically. And then afterwards, you then continue on our agent plan, and you can then go from 1 to 3 workers to 10, 20, 30, whatever you want, basically, right? So, but the point is, like, we make it easy. Like, just when you take a new employee on, they're on a 3-month trial, isn't it, right? You get them in, you train them, you get them to do some stuff, we see how it is. You do the same with digital workers, but we make it easy for you, where we'll work with you, make them get live, make sure they're working in the business need, and you go from there, basically.
Yeah, and the idea then is to over time is what we want to do really is so our ambition, right? If you're new to implement AI, Aalok mentioned it there. We have a program called AI Activate essentially, and that it basically is your first steps to understanding this technology and then onboarding your first digital workers and proving value. So often what we find organizations is, and I'm sure anyone listening to this thinking about implementing AI understands this, is that you've got to take stakeholders with you. Not everyone understands the technology. Some people are, they're worried about it. There's lots of noise in the media about it. But what we play in the box where this technology works and we can show you and talk you through lots of real world use cases where you can deploy it and it actually adds value. There's a measurable return on investment. So we kind of start there, but the technology is moving very, very quickly. So the idea is unlike typical technology, okay, you have a refresh every 3 years, you've got to rip it all out and put something new in. It's disruptive, it's risky, and it costs a lot of money, okay? It takes time as well, soaks up a lot of resource. The idea here is that as you deploy these agents and you become more of an AI first business, as that underlying technology upgrades, which is going to, and that's what you are reading about in the news, it filters through to the deployable production technology. All ships rise. So your business, your agent, it's like having human workers, isn't it? Exactly. They get upgraded every couple of months without you having to do anything.
Correct. So if you think that, and that's the whole point of having a central AI operating system, because you can then strengthen it. So then all your teams can benefit. So if you think about like your phone, you have to update apps now and again, isn't it? Right. So the same thing it applies here, but like you've got different digital workers, but like we will apply the updates to them so they can be better, and you can keep them the same if you want, or you can unlock new capabilities or possibilities, basically, right? So that's the point, basically.
Yeah, so we've come through what 2 years we've been on the business now. And we got to the point now where all these insights we've gained from working with SMEs at the coalface, literally, and some bigger organizations about how you implement this technology, how you take an organization on that kind of journey. That's being reflected, what Alex just described, in the what we call the AIOS, which is our kind of our digital worker platform, if you want to call it that. We call it the AIOS. It's an operating system for your business. So we're deploying that. We're actually going to raise some money soon. So we realize that now to start scaling, we want to build a business. Our ambition is to help, 100,000 SMEs.
Yeah, I want to have like millions of agents working for businesses in the UK and worldwide. Like every day helping entrepreneurs, because it's hard being an entrepreneur. You take a lot of risks. You have to try and make a vision happen, and you're dealing with economic uncertainty. So we want to be partners with ambitious business owners and entrepreneurs and help them basically achieve their dreams and their impact to their organization.
And we find the difference between companies that understand it and actually make it work is mindset. So if you're looking at AI and you want to go all out, great, fantastic. If you're still not sure, and it sounds like we're trying to sell it, but we really strongly believe that you look at our LinkedIn, right? There's a coming wave, right? This is going to change the way businesses operate. As I often says, winning is going to become almost like hedge fund trades. The winner, like in a 100-meter race, is going to be tenths of seconds. So you've got to start thinking about how do you build a business and integrate this technology. So you access more data, you create more data, but you can act on it to create more value. And that's what we're trying to do. So if you're new to us, we have our AI Activate program. That's usually the first step into sort of building a business and deploying this technology. We've got our AI Insider newsletter, which is kind of based on this podcast a little bit, where we talk about what's going on in the market and our insights. We've got lots of events. So if you follow us on LinkedIn, you'll see our events. That's 20th of June. That's in Moorgate in London. We had 116 people last time. We had 300 people actually applied. We try and
For Monday.
yeah, we're trying not to be too selective. Obviously, we want the people to come along, but ideally, if you've got sort of 20 employees plus, couple of million in revenue, you've got processes, workflows, systems, people, you want to grow, but you don't want to hire people, that event's for you, really. And you can look at automating some of those processes, some of those roles, and implementing AI into your business. So we've got our events, but we've lots of other events as well. So I'm at IRX, we're SME Expo, we're the Festival of Entrepreneurs. So follow us and you'll be able to become a meet and talk to us. But if you can't get to one of our events or get to our event, just reach out and we're happy to have a conversation with you. And this podcast we're now working with Fame. We've kind of really, you probably know if you follow us that we try and do this every 2 weeks. Doesn't always happen, but we're trying to make this podcast something where it really has some scale and really tries to get this message out. We think it's genuinely quite important. And we mean this as well, just yourselves. So if you're new to AI, you've got to start using it yourself, then start piloting in your business. And what we're saying is pilot it. Don't try and boil the ocean. Just pick a workflow. We'll help you do this. Pick a workflow, pick a process. We'll help you automate it. We'll show you the value of it. And it's down to you, the pace of which you want to roll this technology out. So anything else, Aalok?
No, I think that's good.
Yeah, so watch out for more news on the AIOS. That's sort of going to be coming out quite soon. We're going to do this podcast hopefully sort of bi-weekly. So if you enjoyed it, if you find it interesting, please follow us on Apple or Spotify, where we listen to podcasts. Please leave a review and please share it as well. We're trying to build this out. There aren't many podcasts like this on AI. They tend to be all about the news and the technological frontier and the noise, essentially. And we're trying to bring it back to be something which is more practical, something more actionable. So thanks for listening, and we will see you again in 2 weeks. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Implement AI podcast. If you're interested in learning more about how we can assist you and your business in leveraging AI for growth and efficiency, visit our website at implementai.io. Don't forget to subscribe to the Implement AI podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever you listen to stay updated on future episodes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.